What is going on, everybody? And in this video, we're providing a state of the market and stock picks for January 25th, 2023. So if that sounds like something you're interested in, consider subscribing, as we do provide daily and weekly updates to get you prepared for the day and the week ahead in this glorious market. Yes, we got a huge green candle on Microsoft. Now, what is really interesting about this is that Microsoft essentially fell in line, which essentially means is they barely hit estimates. And the cloud space in itself actually had growth, which we were expecting. I think like a reduction in growth by 15%. At least that's what they were trying to price in. Right now, when we're currently watching this, it is 4:16 Eastern Standard Time. So we do have their call in about 15 minutes. Forward guidance might change this by the time this video is released. It might start selling. It might start pushing more. But this is why I talk about you need to be adjustable. The market was waiting all day for Microsoft. They wanted to know what exactly is going on. And again, as long as estimations are, even though they're in the dirt, as long as they are on par, the market doesn't totally freak out. And obviously, we got a big candle that could lead to some big rally to the upside and something to take advantage of. This is why I talk about being adjustable, even though my thesis is that things are very poor and there's obvious things are very poor. The market is running. So I'm going to go with the flow. Tomorrow could be a huge day to the upside, especially on SPX. It's being held down, waiting for today. I do see that we could hit to 4,100. I was talking about that yesterday in last week, that if we do break out 4,100, could be a strong possibility. We are wanting tech to pick up. Now with this earnings, it could potentially help tech push up. Again, we need digestion of this. Just because it's pumping right now, the call can change that. Overnight can change that. And that's something we have to keep in mind. You have to be very careful on how we continue. I'm not saying not take advantage. I will try to take advantage of this market. If the momentum wants to go up, I'm going to follow the momentum. But tomorrow could change. It could be different, open up, and we're down. You have to be adjustable, and this is why I obviously have not been taking hardly any overnight positions for the most part. And I wait and see. And you have to see the market adjust, because right now there's just too many data sets that bring too much volatility. And then you'll have the overall pivoting data that essentially will change the direction of the market. And so right now we are waiting for monetary policy. Until then, we have a lot of big earnings. We got BA opening for us tomorrow. Then we got Tesla, Lam Research. We got ASML in the morning as well. So you got a lot of chips on the board. You got a lot of big players tomorrow. Tomorrow's going to be extremely volatile. If we get some good BA earnings, if we get some good ASML earnings, you're going to have chips. You're going to have all the cloud spaces. So your Amazon. Now all those are going to start ripping to essentially to the moon tomorrow. And Tesla starts getting momentum, which it hasn't had momentum in a long time, and starting to get momentum. Tesla could have a huge day tomorrow, especially going into earnings tomorrow after the bell. So just keep that in mind, but also keep in mind, be careful with Tesla, because there's because of earnings, essentially there's a lot priced into the contract. So it takes a big move to even make anything on those contracts during earnings. It's better to go post earnings and take advantage of whatever happens at that point. But again, I'm a permeable. It's good to see this, but in the back of my mind, the numbers are still horribly bad. There's still something bigger that's going to play out, in my opinion. Again, we've ran 600 points and dropped 800. I just want to keep bringing that up. Right now, my next target is 4,100 tomorrow, if the market wants to open up, but we'll see. So we'll see what happens with Microsoft in the morning. But let's go ahead and bring up SPX. Now, this is what I was talking about. We've been playing this range, extremely tight range today. I want to see if we could break up over this, essentially the 40.35 tomorrow if we can. Again, 4,100, this next zone, we're right next to this next zone. My question is If we continue to get good earnings for the rest of the week, or at least for tomorrow, primarily Tesla and BA, if we can get those backing, um, essentially us going into next week. Again, there's a lot of big earnings next week, as long with monetary policy. So I think if we're going to get any kind of big run, it would be between now and next week. So if we get more fuel tomorrow, I'll be definitely playing upside, and it's going to be a monster move, right? You're going to get FOMO and everything else piling into the market tomorrow, especially if the market gaps up. And I've always talked about a gap play. It's one of my favorite plays. We gap up, it's easier to buy calls, all right, because there's a lot of demand there to pick that up if you're gapping one way or the other. So I'll be playing that momentum upside tomorrow. If we open up again, we have to open up and gap up and see if that happens. But if we do, again, I think we got a pretty big runway. And then if everything else falls in line, BA falls in line, Tesla falls in line, you get some massive rips. Now, it's not saying by Friday you can start selling off in preparation for monetary policy. Credit cards are on deck on Thursday. Again, credit cards aren't going to move the market, but they're going to give us good insight into the thesis that we still have. And so that's what I'm watching. I want to watch the growth rate on credit cards. Again, we knew services were going to do well, right? This inflation, there's been massive demand and inflation in services because people can't afford to just buy things. So it's easier to go to services. And so that could be the reasoning for the growth. They still had good growth in the cloud space, so that could be a very positive sentiment for Amazon. But on the same token, retail is doing absolutely horrible. So Amazon's going to get a whammy on that side. So it'll be interesting to see how they do. They might just barely break even. They might have some big, essentially a lot of loss in revenue coming from the retail side, but then make up for it in the cloud space. So I think a lot more earnings will fall in line. Again, if Tesla can fall in line, again, that would be great. If it does not, that could take down the market right at that point. So again, value in the morning, Tesla in the afternoon. Big day for chips tomorrow. We'll see what happens again. And cloud and chips are going to be a huge day tomorrow, just because of Microsoft. So keep that in mind. Again, you got ASML first thing in the morning, so that will provide more. If they do well, provide more strength to the upside tomorrow. And then today will be the day to really take advantage of that. Could get a really strong second day on Thursday if everything aligns with chips and Tesla and BA. And then lead off into potential sell-off and taking profits Friday, because next week we have Powell. So again, this is the market we're in right now. Any kind of positive sentiment, Hopium Army is going to come in and start pushing it, and we'll go with it. Right, we're not going to fight the trend right now. This Hopium spike is very, very strong. Again, there's not a new catalyst to send us lower. Until there's a new catalyst to send us lower, we won't be making new lows from last year. So, which is roughly around the 3,500 mark. So, again, we'll see and go from there. But technical wise, again, tomorrow, let's put this on the daily so we can see this a little bit better. Obviously, we've broken out. The question is can we continue up? Again, my next sentiment is essentially the 4,100. We've been blocked there again, and then that moves us into the next 100-point segment and the next 100-point segment. So it's pretty much how the market's been trading. Again, we've had massive rips, 600 points, 800-point drop. Just keep that in mind. Nonetheless, this will be a positive. And like I said, we just have to be careful that in the back half of this earnings, which is essentially, again, after next week, even the week after that, we'll have some good earnings. But once you start getting your Apples and Amazons and Teslas out of the way, the market really doesn't care at that point anymore. The market's already made up its mind on where it should be going at that point. So if things are positive, if we fall in line with 25-point basis move, that could potentially cause a rally. But then also realize that you have to be very careful, because the normal cycle would you sell off around that February-March period. And then from that point, again, who knows, right? There's a lot of talk about different things. nonetheless, we're trying to take advantage of the current trend and what's currently going on. So we'll run with the opium army until they run out of gas. But tomorrow again could be a huge day for chips and cloud to the upside. So we'll try to take advantage of that. So again, tomorrow, watching the zone very closely. The 4100 is our next key target for SPX. Again, don't trust this breakout. I've talked about this whole time since we've been knocked down. Is that this any kind of breakout has always failed. We've had some sort of spike, whether that's a couple days, and then we fall right back in. So just be mindful of that and be very careful. And so 4100 is the next one. Again, like I said, again, all psychological levels. So 4200 would be the next one, and 4300. The market's been pretty good about staying within those 100-point ranges as far as the SPX stands right now. So we'll see how that goes. Bitcoin, again, if the market's going to rip, Bitcoin's going to rip. Next level could be 2,900. Very well could. We'll see if this thing, it needs to break out 25 first. If it could break out at 25, then can get a nice rip. Again, the market has to open. Just because we had one good earnings, again, it's not really good, but nonetheless, it's pushing. So we're going to go off of the momentum at this point. So if we can get a couple solid days to the upside, I'm going to take advantage of that. And so that's what I'm seeing tomorrow, and that's what I'm trying to take advantage of. Again, it all depends on how we open. So Bitcoin could get a nice push up, but we will see. The dollar is breaking down, really kind of just holding roughly that 101 mark, the 102 mark. Again, you really want it to fall below 100, the 100 mark if you want the bulls to continue. But we'll see. We'll see how that does play out there. So watching the dollar, obviously, going forward. Tesla. So if we really start catching momentum, again, it really depends. BA does well, that can fill the index. Chips do well, that could potentially fill Tesla as well. But we'll have to see there. So watching this first level here at the 153. Again, if it does break that, you're essentially watching the 172. So Tesla can get a huge rip here. Really just depends on how things are on the general index. But this is the first real push it's had in a very long time. Again, but understand it is getting overextended. So any push after tomorrow and then Thursday, you start running into that pre-Powell sell-off and everything else. So if you do happen to catch this intraday, it wouldn't be something I would be holding going into Powell, because all Powell's got to say is 50, and then this whole pump just gets absolutely crushed. So just keep that in mind. Apple, again, just like Microsoft and all the rest of tech, will start pushing tomorrow. Watching roughly the potentially 150. This Apple doesn't move crazy like Tesla does. It's been through a couple stock splits, so it doesn't move all crazy. But definitely needs to be above the 143.25 tomorrow. If it can't break above that, again, it doesn't play a huge range. It's pretty solid. The stock splits help in general if you want a solid stock. Just to progressively push up and not all crazy and haywire like Tesla does at points, then you would go with Apple. It's much steadier moving than typically Tesla. So let's see how it does there. Now, again, a big one I want to watch tomorrow, especially going into they have earnings after the bell tomorrow. And again, if cloud services is knocking it out of the park, not really knocking it out, what cloud is, in a sense, services is in a sense. So I'm expecting strength in services. Aside from that, I think everything else is going to be very weak. And even though the cloud portion of Microsoft did really well, there's a lot of aspects of Microsoft that did not do well. Their products were way down. They lost a lot of money in products selling from what I saw. And so this is what I'm talking about. This is why these big companies have an ecosystem, because they know during times like this, certain parts will fail and the better parts will excel during times like this to kind of make up the difference. The question is hopefully it can sustain that and sustain what's going on. This is why there's layoffs and stuff to kind of help sustain some of that. But again, we're still a long ways from a lot more layoffs coming. And so this fact that we're falling in line isn't a great sign. Short term, it might be good, but long term, if the inflation rates don't come down to wage gap, it's going to be a major problem, and people are liquidating things just to stay afloat. And so that should be what is concerning, and not believe in this pump that's currently going on. You would need a massive change very quickly, and inflation dropping, and Powell saying, okay, well, we're just going to start reducing rates, and that's just not something that's going to happen. There's always a possibility, but there's a very strong chance that in particular is not going to happen. So now we'll see. Again, I think you get a massive rip up to 473. So kind of watching that tomorrow. I think you can get a very good point jump on that one. And then I think if this thing really pushes hard, I think, again, you're going to top out roughly around the 500. So kind of watching now tomorrow. Snow could be another one of them. I think it'd have a big play tomorrow. You want this thing to break over the 152 tomorrow, and then it could have a nice rip up to essentially the 160 tomorrow. If this thing wants to keep going. Google, same thing. Google is going to run tomorrow as well. But we'll see there. BA, again, is on deck tomorrow. This thing needs to break over the 213 tomorrow if you want this to continue. Again, it never really does well on earnings, so I don't really know what BA goes off of, because they're always having to do buybacks and everything. So nonetheless, it's airline supported by the government, so it's going to stay afloat. So we'll see. But again, very, very overextended. I would not want to be holding this. If you bought it down here and holding it up here and continuing to hold it, you're risking a lot, in my opinion, but not financial advice. You definitely already have taken profits. Even this thing wants to explode another 40 points. You don't want to be greedy when this thing is pumped that much over essentially three months. You want to definitely be taking profits, because it will not last that long forever. So JPM kind of rocking around today. Again, it needs to really break out the 144 mark. You don't want it breaking below the 130 mark. Again, big thing here is very overextended. This thing is kind of just floating. That's why you might see a huge explosion in tech, and then everything just kind of die off, and then we get our sell. And that's what I'm kind of thinking what might potentially be happening here is tech has been so beat down. Tech has taken advantage of this run. All it's going to take is one bad earnings. Who knows? Maybe it's Tesla, maybe it's Apple, maybe it's Amazon, and then it just sinks everything else down. So the last thing you want is Amazon or Tesla to get some bad earnings or not hit estimations, and then things could really plummet from there. Again, Microsoft, in my opinion, they had the services. I was expecting services to do very well, just because of inflation and everything that was going on there. I really expected that part to grow, and that's essentially what kind of helped them out there. So we'll see how the rest of this plays out. Again, Google ads. A lot of people haven't been buying, so people just start running ads. So we're going to see if that trend continues. Again, there's still a lot of big earnings coming up, so we have to really see how these juggernauts in every industry are doing. And then after that, the market can digest that and then make a move from there. And then whatever other earnings happen, again, the market really doesn't care. It wants the juggernauts. When it knows what's going on with the juggernauts of the industries, then it will predict where it needs to go from there. So again, and one thing to consider too, if a lot of this stuff is super strong, what's going to stop the Fed from raising rates? That's something else you have to consider. Maybe the Fed say, oh, well, the market can take another 50-point basis move. Inflation isn't coming down fast enough. What if, the downtrend of inflation stops at some point, right? What if the next one it's only 6.5? The Fed may be like, well, we got to go at least another 50-point or 75-point basis move to bring it. It needs to keep coming down, right? They want that continued progression to the downside. If not, that's going to be an issue. So nonetheless, Goldman Sachs, again, you don't want this thing breaking down below essentially the 339. That's kind of pinned at the 380. Again, banks are very much in a holding pattern, so you got to keep that in mind. Again, they didn't do great on earnings. Again, Microsoft didn't do great on earnings, but it was in line. And when things are just so bleak, right? Like in line will work, and that's what we're kind of seeing. So we'll see what happens there. We're going to flip back over to Microsoft one last time before I close this out, because they should have had their call. Kind of get a little bit more insight into what's going on with Microsoft here before we cut this off. Again, still holding. We'll see if there's any additional news that comes out there. But nonetheless, if this thing holds, we get a good BA earnings, which it's hard to really judge BA. Again, I don't know how BA is judged because it loses money all the time. But nonetheless, if BA starts pumping tomorrow, again, if ASML does well in the morning, we could get, again, a very big run in tech tomorrow. Could break out the SPX and get some big push to the upside. And we'll go with the momentum. And I am not opposed to that. And even though my thesis is bearish, I will play to the upside, right? You have to be adjustable. You have to have zero emotion. Just because it's not falling a lot in line with my theory, the market's pushing up, doesn't mean I'm not going to take advantage of it. So with that being said, and you made it this far and those videos long, I appreciate you. Go ahead, drop a thumbs up. Till next time, I'll see you guys later.